My name is Mara Shulman. I'm an attorney with the Conservation Law Foundation in their Zero Waste Project. Very nice to see you all here tonight. Thanks for coming out. I'm going to start by reviewing some slides I have on the proposal that Aries has made for building a biosolids gasification facility here in your city. And after I've finished talking about the proposal, we'll have the speaker talk in a lot of detail about PFAS. So if you have questions about PFAS as I'm speaking, don't worry, they'll all be answered by the next presenter. So what is Aries proposing here for your city? Oh, let me just back up and give you a little bit of information about the Conservation Law Foundation. We use law science in the market to create solutions that preserve our natural resources, build healthy communities, and sustain a vibrant community. And in the Zero Waste Project, we're particularly focused on reducing the amount of waste that our communities produce so that we can extend the life of our landfills and not build or site new ones, and certainly not build or site new incinerators or other facilities like the one that's being proposed here, so that we can benefit the environment and public health for all of us. So Aries is proposing to build a sewage sludge or biosolids treatment facility here in your city. And I want to just talk a little bit about sewage sludge. Sewage sludge and biosolids are interchangeable, but sometimes you'll find that industry uses language that greenwashes or makes something sound better than it is. And so what I want to be clear about is that when we hear the word biosolids, we're talking about the product that comes out of the wastewater treatment facility after it's been processed. Gasification, we'll talk a little bit more about that as well, but that is the process by which Aries is proposing to treat the sewage sludge. So the facility would take in up to 500 tons of sewage sludge each day. That would produce 46 truck trips to and from the facility each day. The facility would generate 100,000 gallons of wastewater each day. It would send air emissions through 127 plus foot high stack over your city and produce 25 tons of ash per day. All this data comes from Aries' own proposal. The ash would be the byproduct after the gasification process has been completed. And Aries is proposing that it would sell that ash for use in the production of cement, concrete, and soil amendment. As we'll talk about a little bit later, that makes us very nervous because the ash is going to contain any of the toxics that were present in the sewage sludge. Any dried sewage sludge that remains when the gasifier is not operating, Aries proposes to sell as fertilizer or soil remediation. Again, problematic because any toxics that are in the sewage sludge would then make their way back into our soil. So let's talk a little bit more about sewage sludge. Sewage sludge is the solid or semi-solid leftovers from wastewater treatment facilities. It's already contaminated. Wastewater is contaminated already with some of the substances that make their way down our drains. There's a few listed here: steroids, hormones, pharmaceuticals, metals, flame retardants, microplastics, and PFAS. And what's made even worse is it's not just the toxics that go down our drains. Wastewater treatment facilities, many of them, also take in landfill leachate. Landfill leachate is the juice that leaks out of landfills. So any goods or consumer goods or other materials that make their way into landfills, when that juice seeps out of the landfills, it's collected. That leachate is collected in leachate collection systems. If it's transported to a wastewater treatment facility, then any of the toxics that were contained in the garbage are now mixed in with the wastewater that is being treated at a facility and ends up in our sewage sludge. Sewage sludge can be Class A or Class B depending on whether the treatment method removes pathogens. But what is very clear is that wastewater treatment facilities are not set up to remove things like PFAS. Aries is making a lot of bold claims in its proposal. Aries is claiming that the facility will destroy toxics like PFAS through a high temperature gasification process. It's claiming that the facility will not discharge toxics like PFAS into the air, soil, or water. It claims to have a special technology, something called a fluidized bed gasification that can accomplish this. We're going to have a slide shortly that will directly from the proposal that depicts what that process looks like. On the next slide, we're going to talk a little bit about gasification. It is a very high heat, low oxygen processing of waste. It's similar to incineration. However, because it's low oxygen, it is different, and it's broken into two separate parts. The first part consists of the waste being heated in a very oxygen deprived environment to create a synthetic fuel. Ash is a byproduct. And as we discussed earlier, the ash is what Aries is proposing to be sold as an amendment for concrete. The synthetic fuel is then burned in an oxygen-rich environment, leaving ash as the byproduct. On the next slide, we have a picture from Aries' proposal of a fluidized bed gasification facility. It's very pretty. It claims to take in sewage sludge, do some magic, and produce a useful material from which all toxics and PFAS have been removed. But as we'll hear from our next speaker, the science does not support that this proposed technology works. Thank you.
So I see that those really high temperatures that they want, are proposing that supposedly, kill the PFAS. So obviously you have to burn things to create high temperatures. So I haven't heard anything about what's going to be used to make that heat, whether it's going to be burning like oil, natural gas, something like that. Is that something that we should be concerned about as well? I mean, obviously the PFAS are very, very, very dangerous, but also that coming into the air as well, being from the burning of fossil fuels.
The claim is, that's a very good question. The claim is that fuel would only be needed to start up the process, and then the gasification itself would create as a byproduct fuel that would then power the facility. So Aries is claiming that the energy needed to power their facility is limited in scope. But you're absolutely right to worry about the greenhouse gas emissions associated with a facility like this. And that is why any so-called advanced recycling or chemical recycling process, and there's a whole lot of technologies that fall under that category. And biosolids is not the only waste product that is being proposed to be treated in this way. Plastic waste is another thing that industry is claiming can be converted into something else through these advanced recycling technologies. But anytime you hear about a technology like that, you should be worried about the climate impact. And so that is an absolutely important question to be asking.